And so there has been a counter coup against the globalist coup that was just wanting to bankrupt us with Obamacare and open borders and the Islamic invasion, all the rest of it. That's all basically falling apart. In Europe, Wilders is going to win in the Netherlands. Le Pen's going to win. She's way ahead. And there's Muslims burning Paris down. They won't call them Muslims on the news. They call it anti-police riots. So the point is that Islam has exploded over 1 billion plus people. I'm not against the average Muslim, but the radical, really, provincial ones are coming in. They've been brought in with this weird globalist alliance between globalist corporate socialists and globalist Islam who think they can coexist to take over and defeat the West, and it's just not going to happen. You can get rid of Trump, you can do whatever. The genie ain't going back in the bottle. And I look at Nancy Pelosi not knowing that Bush isn't president anymore in the same press conference, and then what Waters, not knowing what Aleppo is, and then saying the Russians have invaded Korea, not even North or South. Folks, you watch C-SPAN, these people think islands float. So there are a lot of smart people in the technocracy and special interests that just want to make their money, but no one's really even a central brain up there. I'm kind of embarrassed we can't beat these people easier. But they just act like a locust swarm of disinfo, and Flynn still hasn't apologized. He said, I'm sorry, the president, I wasn't totally clear, but that's what a national security advisor does for my research, and they even tacitly admit that and say, well, this is normal to make these calls. But what were they doing being spied on by Obama? So this is huge. I want to ask Pieczenik what his view is on this, and I want him to get to what should we do? Because Michael Moore and others are saying overthrow him, kill him, arrest him. It's all over the news. Just every major comedian, you name it, kill him, kill him, kill him. This is like an organized civil war of a bunch of crazy people that don't even know what end is up. And there's red brigades marching around attacking cat sanctuaries in Austin. It's like, what? I mean, these people are so nasty. I don't even know. I think they're insane. So I'm going to ask Dr. Pieczenik, who is a psychiatrist, former head of psychological warfare for different agencies. I know he has a lot of contacts. He's not doing this for an agency, but he's talked to the agencies. I have connections, obviously, separate from Pieczenik, pretty high level in the big contracting and other groups and major groups that hook into all these things. And they say it's like 90% anti-globalist and that they're done. They're just laughing. I don't see this as funny. But the consensus is that if they really try to get violent, they're really going to get their ass handed to them. I don't know. I am really concerned. Dr. Pieczenik, that's like a 5-minute intro. Thanks for joining us on short notice. Pieczenik.com, co-wrote books with Tom Clancy. It's hard to do all your bio. It's so long. Co-founded Delta Force with General Boykin and others. What are we really looking at here? You heard my little breakdown.
I think, as usual, you've articulated the emotional aspects of what's going on, but it's really getting out of control. Not with you, it's getting out of control with a lot of the comedians and the media. What's happening is the media can no longer understand that Flynn was not intended to remain in the National Security Agency. That's news. In other words, when he was placed in there—
Wait a minute, I was told that by other sources yesterday. Man, you really got some amazing— hold on. I was told this was all a setup. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, I said it from the beginning, that we put in Flynn, but it was not intended to keep him there all the time. Mike Flynn is an excellent general in Defense Intelligence Agency. Many do not like him. We knew that. Many do not agree with him. We knew that. At the same time, it was Flynn and Bannon and a bunch of others who were able to get Trump over the hump and into the presidency. Now, I wrote a blog yesterday, which you guys received, and in that blog, I simply said, welcome to American entrepreneurship. In other words, we place people in positions, then we take them out. The chief of staff or the chief CEO, which is what Trump is, comes in and fires and fires. The reason why America is not used to this is America has become lazy. It has become surfeit. It has become non-capitalistic. When we put a businessman— this is the first businessman in 100 years who we've put into the presidency— the first thing the businessman does, and he correctly does, is he fires the people who have helped him. He fires the people who have not helped him, and it's not personal. We have no personal stake in this other than the fact that we wanted major change in the United States, and that is what major change looks like. You help somebody, and then you leave. The chief of staff may not be the chief of staff very much longer, Priebus. The person who's giving the press talk, Spicer, may not be the next chief speaker. And Flynn knew very well that given his personality, given the fact of how loyal he was to America and to Trump, that that was enough to get him to the position that he needed to be, and he knew he would have to leave. Now, what in fact happened? Flynn did not commit any crimes, neither did anybody in the Trump administration. Let me go back to when I was in the Reagan and Bush administration, when Reagan and Bush sent out the individuals to Iran while I was involved with the Carter administration in the Iran hostage siege. So if they wanted to impose the Logan Act on Flynn or anyone else in the Trump administration, they better go back to Newt Gingrich, they better go back to Reagan and his staff, and to Bush and his staff. I do not think they want to do that. There is no violation of the Logan Act. There is no transaction that regards money.
Sure, but what is the total attempt to overthrow Trump and the hysteria? You're right, it's crazy. Where's that coming from?
Well, it's coming from what you said and what we talked about. When people are ineffectual and they have been aced out, which is what happened to Hillary, it's what happened to Bill Clinton, it's what's happened to the entire left, it happened to the Democratic Party. They didn't know how fast we were moving in and how quickly we could eviscerate them. They're eviscerated. Everything else that's occurring is nothing but a bunch of sheeps bleeing out and complaining, but it has no effect whatsoever. If, however, they continue to make pronouncements like the following, that Trump is crazy, which he is not, that Trump is mad, which he is not, and this is made by psychologists, then I strongly recommend that Trump and the administration file suit against the American Psychiatric, against the American Psychological Association, and against every physician who has positively stated that on TV, including the comedians, Bill Maher, Steve Colbert, Jon Stewart, or anyone else who makes that pronouncement that is beyond the freedom of speech. That has to do with slander of a personality.
Because they're using their professional guild, their professional letters to then project across and make a diagnosis to try to ruin someone. I mean, that is the definition of defamation.
That's correct. But it's also medical malpractice. When I saw a group of psychologists, 30 of them, none of whom I knew, state categorically that Trump had mental illness, that was grounds for debarring them and legitimizing their academic credentials. There is no reason whatsoever for anybody to make that kind of diagnosis unless they have seen Trump, they have gone and talked to him, and I would guarantee you that's not the conclusion you would come to. However, this kind of hysteria, which is really created by the left and by the frustration and impotence of the comedians, of the politicians, is what we can expect. But there will be limits that will be set. Now, let me go back into why it's important that Flynn left. Flynn understood that he had a limited time within the National Security Agency. It had nothing to do with Bannon. It had nothing to do with Jared Kushner. It had much more to do with a much more important triumvirate, which has a legitimacy in this administration. And that triumvirate has to be James Mattis, Secretary of Defense, Pompeo, the director of the CIA, and the other generals who are involved in taking care and maintaining our stability. Now, what am I saying? This is not a military coup. What it is, in fact, is a disciplined, highly professional staff who happen to have been military officers, ran major institutions in the thousands and thousands, who now are coming into the civilian ranks, running the government as it should be, a professional organization, be it a business or a military organization, and they're cleaning out everything that's not used.
Sure, but the media is using it to then legitimize the whole Russian thing and really create a hysteria. Just stop right there, because I have to ask this question. As you know, foreign policies, an arm of the Washington Post and the CFR, and it kind of puts out what the establishment's really thinking. They've come out and said the Kremlin is really starting to worry about Trump. Then it goes into, okay, we know Trump's really not crazy. He really is a nationalist, has this plan to devolve power, and America's going to be so powerful through the global system now, it's going to take over, and we were actually going to weaken America through globalism. So, Putin, you really ought to be against Trump because he really is meaning what he says he's going to do and really is a revolutionary, and we're scared of him. So the establishment communicating with itself in this 2-day-old article really tips their hand, and they do this in a lot of other articles. I mean, they really know that Trump, look, he is trying to get rid of the fines on Obamacare. He is trying to control the borders. He is really trying to get loans to Main Street instead of Wall Street. And look at the economy take off. Goldman Sachs has already made all this money just off of what Trump did, but they're still working against him. I just don't get why they don't just back down.
Well, the key here is, listen, first of all, most of Goldman Sachs is in the Trump administration. Let's be frank. Mr. Cohen, who was CEO of Goldman Sachs, is a serious banker, was asked, he did not volunteer, he was asked by Jared Kushner to come in to be head of the Economic Council. You have Mnuchin, who came in.
No, I know, but I'm saying he's blowing up the whole Goldman Sachs last 10-year plan.
Well, that's correct. But at the same time, let me be frank. There are two elements that are going on here. First, Trump is cleaning out our government and our institutions as if we were a nation state. Obama never treated us as a nation state. Bush Jr. never treated us as a nation state, and neither did Clinton. They had no concept that this country was more than just a group of bureaucrats who ran an organization and made kumbaya. Now we're coming to very definitive points where we have to have trade with bilateral negotiations, not multilateral, where we have to sit down with the Canadian leaders, with the Mexican leaders, with the Japanese leaders. It's not an accident. Abe, who happens to be extremely bright and understands strategic positioning, that he came very quickly to the United States to have a relationship with Trump. So what does the press highlight? They don't understand the strategic importance of Japan. What they highlighted was the fact that there was a non-secure discussion in the dining room. Absolutely absurd. The most important element of that visit was not the security, was the fact that Trump could take Abe, Prime Minister Abe, on a golf course and talk to him over hours. That's exactly what Eisenhower did with all of the foreign leaders.
Sure, he's actually trying to be president, actually trying to make good deals for the U.S. that are, both way, not one way. They're in rebellion against Rex Tillerson. They say they're going to try to defeat the Russians in France because, quote, Le Pen's a Russian agent. This is all pure BS. We saw the communist Chinese and the Saudi Arabians involved in the election. And it's just, I can't, so I know you're wanting to say things are good, and Trump's trying to get a lot done what he said, but I'll be honest, it looks like a civil war in the federal government to me, Dr. Pieczenik. What do you say?
Well, it may be perceived as a civil war, but you don't put a man like Rex Tillerson, who's run a $400 billion corporation all over the world, knows every country in the Middle East and Southeast Asia better than any Foreign Service officer.
No, I know he's great for the job.
He will clean out that State Department. I have run that State Department, and there have been 20,000 people. You could easily clean out 10,000.
No, I agree. So, I mean, why is this going on right now then?
Well, because I said they're frustrated. When you're impotent and frustrated, you go into rage, into a childish rage, and that's what's happening to the left. Can they affect the changes that we will implement? No. I can guarantee you none of the changes will occur. There will be no impeachment hearings.
So is that why all the other people I talked to say the intelligence community is almost completely behind Trump?
That's correct. Those who were involved in putting Trump in are behind him. And that's a major number of people in both the civilian and military intelligence. Contrary to what you hear from the Brennan and others who have left and will continue to leave.
That's my next question. What is wrong with Brennan? What is his problem?
His problem was, I don't want to get into Brennan. I mean, Brennan was an Irish Catholic who went to Fordham. He was not very bright. He went to Saudi Arabia, he converted. And when you don't have very bright people who have never really been trained to be professionals, have never been in combat, that's what you get. You get the slugs of the intelligence community. This new intelligence community is way different than anything else. The new man that we're getting in is a naval commander, vice admiral of the Navy, Special Forces. He has far more talent in many ways than Mike Flynn. He will bring in his own team. He will then get rid of those who were brought in by Flynn. That is the nature.
Well, sir, I hope you're right. Stay over with us. This just broke, Infowars.com. Mikhail Phelan from his sources in WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks has also put this out. He will die in jail. Ex-NSA analyst says intelligence community going nuclear with Trump. Now we go nuclear. War between President Trump and intelligence community intensifies. Former National Security Agency analyst says U.S. intelligence community is preparing to go nuclear with President Trump. John Schindler, who spent nearly a decade at the NSA as an intelligence analyst and counterintelligence officer, stated Wednesday the senior intelligence source said Trump will die in jail following a series of tweets concerning recent leaks. Now we go nuclear. I see war going to new levels, Schindler wrote. Just got email from senior IC friend, it will begin. He will die in jail. And that's what I see publicly as an attempted coup. Globalism's in trouble. It's broken. It's delusional. It's insane. It's in trouble. Almost everybody I talk to, low-level, high-level military, intelligence agencies, they're all behind Trump. The higher levels of minorities are for Trump than what the media says. His polls are up. Good things are happening. I get we're in a good position. But they're trying to just push, hey, kill Trump so crazies, try it. They're openly acting very confident, so I just don't want to be too overconfident here. So when I get a little hysterical, it's to get America to wake up and understand we won a major battle, but not the war yet. Dr. Steve Pieczenik himself has been involved in regime change around the world and here in the United States, and we're clearly witnessing them say. The Democrats are saying we're going to overthrow Trump, we're going to remove him. Their main mouthpieces are saying that now with him less than a month in. So Dr. Pieczenik, again, you're saying, you know, basically everything's okay?
Well, what I'm saying is I and others who've been involved in regime change, including this regime change, can assure you that what you're seeing now
is flailing.
Consequences of having a very rapid knife cut right through the heart of the Democratic Party, the nation, and the fact that the people who wanted to bring back capitalism, entrepreneurship, have succeeded. It's not something we're going to step back from. But let me assure you, the NSA, the intelligence community, the National Security Council, the White House, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of Homeland Security.
Our people are in, so good luck to the coup people. Our people are in, so good luck.
The point is, we created the counter coup. We're now in control. We're not amateurs at this. We have done this for 30 to 40 years. The Soviet Union is not our enemy. Neither is Russia. Even when I took it down, I said Russia will always remain our ally. Our ally will be now Saudi Arabia, Israel, Dubai, United Arab Emirates.
So who are the new allies in the new system?
The new system allies, and I got to give credit to Bibi, he brought together Saudi Arabia, UAE, Dubai, all sharing intelligence, and they all want to work with Jared Kushner to bring a solution to the Palestinians and Israelis. The Israelis understand.
So they're finally starting to roll over.
Well, I don't want to call it that. I want to say it's a new approach. They understand that for now, the realignment in the Middle East is legitimate.
And that's why Trump said today, we'll soon be announcing some big things.
Well, because Syria wants peace. Bashar Assad has had enough war. He doesn't want any more war. Iran needs to reconstitute its government, contrary to what other people said. Secretary of Defense is leery of Iran, which is correct. Tillerson understands Iran, understands the Middle East better than any other Secretary of State I've ever seen or met before. I haven't met the gentleman yet. And the Secretary of Defense is in great control, all his allies.
So we're seeing a temper tantrum by just the dregs that are trying to act tough and act big.
You're right. You're in the baby clinic now. You're in the Montessori school of Democrats where they're crying and yelling, pooping in their diapers, and basically can't do anything. They're just screaming and pooping. That's all it is. For the most part, we control the House, we control the personnel, we control the cash flows, we control everything. I'm not being complacent. I'm just saying to the people who have watched your show, who have been part of the revolution hasn't just stopped. It continues, because part of that revolution is we clean out our own people. We then clean out those who are in our way. And then we continue to increase the growth. We continue to make sure that America does attain ascendancy into being number one.
Thank you so much for the time. All I know is they start blowing stuff up and rioting. I don't want to see too strong a response by Trump, but he has to respond to people trying to overthrow the government.
There's no question about it, but their attempt to overthrow won't even get to page one. Trust me. I've been in regime change for too long. We anticipated this. We understood it from day one. As I said to you very early on, years ago, we're going to have a major change. We're going to have a counter coup. That coup will be effective.
And it's happened. Thank you, Dr. Pieczenik. Amazing. Because it really is that epic battle. Look, we've got our president in. He's doing everything he said he'd do. And I just talked to Steve Pieczenik, who is hooked into the highest levels of the CIA. He used to run their psychological warfare operations. I'm hooked into very high-level CIA myself. And all these years, people said, you're CIA, you're with the CIA. And I said, no, I'm not. And there's a bunch of articles saying, what is Jones going to do now that the power structure is, his people? Where's his conspiracies going to go? There's a total war to keep Trump from fixing things. And then if Trump ever actually got a bunch of his stuff completed, then I'd be a watchdog. I'm not, just loyal to Trump because he's Trump. I'm loyal because he wants to restore the republic and so my kids have a future. I'm totally committed, but they think the listeners are dumb. Oh, now that Trump's in, does Alex not believe in the same conspiracy theories? What, like that the polls were fake and Trump was going to win? Or it's been now released this week, it's in the Intercept and other news, that the Pentagon under Obama was preparing for a total takeover during a collapse. I'm totally proven right again. I was told that by people high level in special forces. I mean, we don't make stuff up around here. We told you a month before Mitt Romney would never be Secretary of State because a certain person was the source on that. He doesn't like to brag, but he just, I guess, had read the tea leaves. But the point is, we don't shovel BS here. And Roger Stone normally hosts every Wednesday in the 4th hour. He invited me to pop on with him some today, so I'm here to the bottom of the hour, here to 20 after, and then I'm gonna get in there for the nightly news and a bunch of big announcements. But obviously, Michael Moore's announced it. It's all over the news. The Democrats are in press conferences. We want to arrest Trump. We want to overthrow him. We want to install Hillary. This is almost even better. I mean, the New World Order really is going to go down if they try this. Nationalism. The nationalist is in the lead in the presidential race in the Netherlands. The nationalist is in the lead in France, Le Pen. And guess what? Same thing. Merkel, 2/3 of Germans in major polls say they hate her. Oh, they're all Russian spies. That's right. I was against Obamacare and gun control because Putin did so. This is asinine, but he's in the New York Times today. Him and Manafort. Why? The Brennan, the converted Wahhabist. He says they're Russian spies, or they talk to the Russians, and then Manafort says he's boggled because he never did. It's the same recycled story 3 times. The last time was January 20th. This is crazy, folks. This is insane. Meanwhile, the communist Chinese, all of them are in the news saying, take Trump out. And Silicon Valley says, China, help us stop Trump. We'll help, don't worry. Foreign powers openly involved, communist country. That's a nice tie, Roger Stone. Nice suit. I bet, did Putin help you put that on? Because everybody knows he helps us shave in the morning. America couldn't vote and get Trump. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't, go expose his illegitimate black son and get the black vote. We didn't have any effect. You didn't have any effect. You don't have a best-selling book, The Making of a President. America's never succeeded before. Why, you've heard Maxine Waters. Trump had to be given the term crooked Hillary from Putin because Trump couldn't think of her being crooked himself, could he?
Yeah, and Alex, you were exactly right on election night when you said to me, this isn't the end, this is just the beginning. In fact, the biggest fight is ahead of us. You were absolutely right. The two-party duopoly and the establishment simply will not accede to the democratic election of Donald Trump and let him exercise his constitutional authority to reform our government and to make America great again. They are going to resist this at every level, including breaking the law if it's necessary, including the illegal monitoring of U.S. government officials and the leaking of that information, which is, of course, a felony. Precisely what's happened here in the case of General Flynn.
And just to be clear, I've been covering politics 20 years, but I grew up getting mother's milk during the, when you were there in the Nixon administration, watching the whole hearings in Congress. Everybody knows that an incoming group talks to all the diplomats and back and forth, and that it's a president's sovereign purview as a separate branch of government to go sign treaties with the Russians if he wants. Then Congress has to ratify. I mean, the president can do whatever he wants with the Russians. Then it gets judged by us, the voters. This idea that it violates the Logan Act, the TPP with Hillary and Obama, secretly negotiating with private corporations the deal without Congress and not letting them have a copy, that's treason. The head of state with his designates communicating with other heads of state is the exact purview of the chief executive.
No, this is extraordinary. It is entirely appropriate for General Flynn to make contact with the Russians to set up, an initial congratulatory call between the new president and the head of the Russian state. We know from the transcripts that there was no substantive discussion of sanctions. And we know from a review by the White House counsel's office that General Flynn violated no laws. This was typical inside the Beltway lynching.
This is Priebus, and let's just say it, and I like him, it's the vice president. It's the big Republican establishment swinging their wee-wees around.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And as Dr. Corsi wrote today at InfoWars, is exactly right. The game plan here is very simple. Purge the Trump loyalists. First General Flynn, then the very capable Stephen Miller, and then finally the president's chief issues man, Steve Bannon. The problem here for them, for the Republican establishment, is that we Trump loyalists are not going to stand for it. There is zero chance we will let this happen. And if we have to mobilize the grassroots to make sure the president knows we have his back, I'm prepared to do so, and I know you are as well.
I get why he had to bring Priebus and them in, because that's a big system to run. He wanted to work with them, but there's such, and then Ryan gets on TV and says, I'm going to work with him. He looked like a weasel, like Eddie Haskell when he said it. And now we know Priebus is the leaker on a lot of this stuff. It's come, even mainstream media, and I know we have sources who've talked to the little guy. So he better, I mean, here's the deal. We're just going to get a data package together, obviously, everybody, but do it through Twitter, you name it. The public, it's not just Roger and I. He hears the public. And I'm doing a big story on this tonight. It's confirmed for 2 weeks, no one's allowed to get in the Twitter feed where he can read it, but hundreds down. They block it. So he doesn't see your link, doesn't read your article, doesn't retweet you. Okay? They're trying to cut him off. Okay? And so they don't even let you get to the president now. They only put haters up at the top. And Priebus has been meeting with Twitter. This is all a disgusting little action. So this is incredible. They're trying to cut Trump off from the American people, and it's disgusting, and it's an example of how controlled this is. If they can censor and hijack the president's feed, and it's not even in the news, then, folks, imagine what else is going on. Remember, a month ago, they said, let's ban the president off Twitter. Roger, where does this go?
No, it's really extraordinary, Alex. I pick up the paper and I read that the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who I have a very high regard for, is meeting with the captains of Silicon Valley as if they are our friends. Let's be very clear. Google, particularly, Facebook, sought to undermine Donald Trump in this campaign, fiddled with their SEO to try to bury bad news about Hillary Clinton, elevate any criticism of Donald Trump. These folks are not our friends. Again, Dr. Jerry Corsi has done extraordinary research into Google's efforts to infiltrate this administration so they can have the kind of advantages and the kind of inside fix on the issues they care about that they enjoyed under 8 years of Barack Obama. The Silicon Valley crowd, the Wall Street crowd, the inside the Beltway lobbyist culture, and the establishment Republican Party are not our friends. They are not part of the of the Trump revolution. Little Freudian slip there. They are doing everything possible they can to foot drag. And now I'm increasingly concerned that Reince Priebus is inserting himself into the selection of ambassadors is going to give us people who are unqualified. As Dr. Corsi broke the news today, Priebus circumvented the State Department, violated a commitment that was given to the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, that he would have the ability to interview the candidates for the absolutely strategically key embassies. And instead now those jobs are going to RNC.
He should be fired right there. He's off the Republican Party donors that Trump got none of the money from. He doesn't want their money. He's kicking them out of politics. Why the hell are all these peacocks, all these narcissists that want to go stand around at embassies and act like they're fancies pants and have these stupid parties? Why are all these wannabe Thurston Howell IIIs even being allowed in?
Well, only minutes ago, we got word that the nominee for Secretary of Labor Andy Puzder is withdrawing his name. Where did his name come from to begin with? I can answer that in 2 words. Reince Priebus.
And by the way, see how we're on target. See how that's in Corsi's headline. I just trust Corsi. 3 #1 New York Times bestsellers, all of his key deals, absolutely upsetting 2 elections. I don't know his sources, but he's been in D.C. He's moved there, back there. He's at these meetings, and he said that it is incredible what's going on with Priebus, and there is no doubt. If we'll put his article on screen, there is no doubt that Priebus is one of the prime leakers. Here it is, Priebus next to go as Trump strikes back over Flynn. I talked to some of my folks that are connected in to the intelligence agencies. And again, I'm not with an intelligence agency. I'm an independent American citizen. Most of the intelligence agencies are totally against the globalists because they're sick of it. They want America back. So that, all they're doing is confirming or denying info for me, so I know. But they say that it looks like the fate of Priebus is still not known. I guess that's in Trump's brain?
Well, in an odd sense, while the Flynn ouster may be a catalyst, it may be the beginning of the dominoes that end with the fall of Mr. Priebus, they have also run interference because this is a much bigger story than the mismanagement of the White House and the leaking of information from White House staffers that make the president look foolish.
Yeah, let's be clear. Chris Ruddy got called up by high-level players, as high as they go, except the president, and told, please backtrack on this. And I'm not going to get into the rest of it, but, I mean, that went on. He admitted that happened.
Yeah. On the other hand, I still don't think this will stand. It is my understanding that Reince Priebus and Steve Bannon, who I have a very high regard for and have defended in a dozen forums from the outrageous attacks on him that he is an anti-Semite or a bigot or a nativist, all those things are false. They're doing these joint telephone calls with reporters, telling them how much they love each other and how they work so closely together. These are like hostage videos, Alex. They're being forced to say those things. At least in this case, I think Bannon is. He's a good man, but he ought to be aware that he is on Priebus's target list next, right after the very capable Stephen Miller.
Well, it's funny, they have the public policy kind of foreign affairs branch. The Washington Post came out and admitted, an article we covered a lot the last few days, that, okay, Trump's really for real. He's a nationalist. He wants prosperity. America's going to take over the whole globalist system, basically, and Russia better watch out because globalists were going to work with Russia, but Trump's actually just going to be totally dominant. So we hope the Russians understand that. And they admit that Bannon and Trump and everybody just want Americana and good deals for us. And the truth is, if we just get these deals before they can plunge the economy, it's game over. We're going to dominate everybody. I mean, give me a break. China's tottering on the edge of collapse. So why doesn't the globalists just get out of the way and let the United States of America dominate?
Here's what really bothers them, Alex. They realize that we could be on the verge of peace. In Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, you have 2 very, very tough guys, 2 very stubborn guys, 2 guys who have the best interests of their respective countries at heart. I am convinced that if Brezhnev and Nixon can hammer out an agreement on the strategic arms limitations, then Trump and Putin can make a deal for peace.
And the bureaucracy admits they don't want that, and they admit that Russia wants to do deals and not get bankrupted by a new Cold War. We don't want to be bankrupted by one. There'll be plenty of defense spending, plenty of issues. It's ridiculous. We shouldn't sit here because the neocons want to reconquer Russia because Trotsky got kicked out, and they've still got a hard-on for the Russians because they got to kill so many of them. They're bloodthirsty for them.
I think we all know what this is really about. Hillary Clinton had promised the boys at Langley and the folks at the Pentagon that they would have a wider proxy war in Syria. They were licking their chops over a no-fly zone. God, we could get World War III. Wouldn't that be great? This is how the neocons think. Donald Trump has no intention of going out and provoking an unnecessary
war. And by the way,
war.
the Pentagon, it was one that helped block the neocons on this. And let's take Netanyahu. They claim ally with the neocons. Netanyahu's even signaling he doesn't want big wars and wants to stop this. What does that mean?
Well, because, look, he is another leader who has the best interests of his country at heart. War is good for no one other than the defense contractors and many of Hillary Clinton's biggest donors to the Clinton Foundation.
Steve Pieczenik with his sources, and again, I have mine as well, they say, look, this is like babies throwing fits. Everybody's saying kill Trump, overthrow him. The press conference is saying he's a Russian agent. It's going nowhere. Well, then why get rid of Flynn when Trump, even today, when Netanyahu said, I like him, Flynn's a great guy. Why have, the press secretary say, well, it was a trust issue and he just didn't tell him the truth. When he said, no, we didn't substantively discuss sanctions. The Russians just said they wanted to talk about sanctions with the president. That's what you do as the national security advisor.
Yeah, it's agenda setting. This was very sadly a typical inside the Beltway lynching. General Flynn, who is, I think, a great man and a great patriot, and a man who understands the dangers of Islamic terrorism, has been pushed out over what could have been contained. He broke no laws. He acted appropriately. He merely had to apologize to the president for a protocol breach, and we could have moved on.
You told me that yesterday. It looked like Trump got stampeded like Priebus does, where he calls people in, says they're fired. The person gets depressed, goes in and resigns. And it kind of says like he was told, so he resigned and went and apologized. And Trump looked like today he wasn't playing good cop, because I know from people that have said he doesn't play good cop, bad cop. He'll fire you if you're really firing you. He's like, well, Flynn's a really great guy. Too bad this happened. Almost like he wasn't behind that.
Yeah, perhaps the president is looking at all the facts and the whirlwind of the last 48 hours, and he's come to that conclusion. Look, I also don't think Sean Spicer is doing the president any good.
By the way, Trump called it a criminal attack on a wonderful man. Trump ramps up war on his own spies as he rages against Democrats, leakers who he legally brought down, disgraced Mike Flynn. Yeah, in fact, I heard this from little birds, and now it's pretty much confirmed by this. They stampeded him just like they tried with, can I say the other guy's name? In the meetings where they say, you've got to resign, and then he goes, I want to talk to the president, and it's not true.
Anthony Scaramucci, well thought of in conservative and Trump supporter circles, hanging in limbo, even as we speak, appointed a liaison to the business community by the president, but yet to be sworn in. Again, Reince Priebus is jealous of the fact that Anthony Scaramucci has a direct personal relationship with the president and can communicate with him. That was his same problem with General Flynn. Mr. Priebus would like to be the source of all information for the president. And that shows he doesn't know Donald Trump.
Well, it's clear now. It all just crystallized with Trump's statements and everything. It was a Priebus. They admit it. They went to Flynn, and basically the vice president went to him, and they said, okay, you're bad. And Flynn said, okay, I haven't done anything wrong, but if I didn't answer perfectly here, I just resign. And it looks like they manipulated him into resigning, but maybe it'll turn out good. But now Trump is on. I've never seen, he's like, Flynn's really wonderful. He's a great guy. This is horrible this happened. This looks really bad.
Well, look, I'm hoping that General Flynn remains in the public eye, remains in public life, and will continue speaking out, because I think he still has a very valuable role to play. And then, Alex, this whole week gets topped off by picking up the newspaper this morning and reading, in order to coincide with this Flynn flap, the New York Times essentially recycled their story from June 20th, reiterating again the completely bogus and false allegation that Paul Manafort, my former partner, chairman of the Trump campaign during the summer and into the convention, and that
we're continuously in communication. It's continuously is the headline at CNN. Continuously in communication with the Russians. And Manafort says, I'm boggled. I talked to no one.
No, look, my wife called minutes ago. She saw my photo flash up on CNN, and she said, wait a minute, you didn't talk to any Russians, did you? And you know the answer. Absolutely, categorically not. I spoke to no Russians, no intermediaries for the Russians, no representatives of the Russians. I have no Russian clients, no Russian contacts, no Russian money, and I have never spoken to anybody in Russia.
Here's what's happening. They're targeting everybody they know are good advisors off the record of Trump and saying they've been spotted as potential Russians. You can't talk to them now. And Flynn's a Russian. And now Michael Moore says Trump's a Russian. And at a certain point, he's the president. He can talk to whoever he wants. This is a load of horse manure. And he's got to just go ahead and just point out it is and start an investigation of Hillary with the Saudi Arabians and commie Chinese? I think the answer's the offense. I'm going to turn the baton over to you, my friend, but your book's available at InfoWarsStore.com. We have a new caveman bone broth supplement, chocolate flavored, the total game changer. Check that out, folks. But Roger, I mean, what does Trump do? Doesn't he go on the offense?
He needs to not only go on the offense, Alex, but he needs to clean house. He needs to clean house at the White House. There are many, many capable Republican operatives who were for Donald Trump from the beginning, who sacrificed to help get him elected, who are more than capable of handling these mechanical jobs at the White House. There are many fine people who could be assistant secretaries and deputy secretaries in the departments, who are capable individuals who supported Donald Trump from the beginning, who share his worldview. We need to repopulate this administration.
Absolutely, and just get rid of the Paul Ryan tentacle, Mr. Penis, excuse me, Mr. Priebus.
Talk about one of my favorite subjects, a weasel that we need to keep our eyes on very carefully, and that is the former conservative flip-flop artist and liberal hitman, David Brock. Now, Mr. Brock fronts a number of organizations that he claims are monitors of the media or monitors of public ethics. But in fact, these are all propaganda organizations designed to cover up the many crimes of Bill and Hillary and Chelsea Clinton and to hurl invective and personal insults, smears, as it were, against anybody who has the courage to speak out against the Clintons or the political status quo in Washington. I estimate that Mr. Brock probably burned through perhaps $30 to $40 million in the last election, having absolutely, positively nothing to show for it. Now comes amazing new research by Dr. Jerome Corsi showing that Brock is in bed with both Google and Facebook, attempting to censor critics of the Clintons and advocates for President Trump. So to help us keep an eye on what illegal activity Mr. Brock is involved in now, Andrew Kerr joins us from Citizens Audit. Welcome, Andrew, to Infowars.com.
Thanks, Roger. It's an honor to be speaking with you right now.
So you have done some extraordinary work, and I always enjoy reading the updates on your site. Tell our listeners who Mr. Brock is, where he came from, and what he's done.
He's like you say, he's a former conservative author. He wrote The True Story of Anita Hill back in the early 90s. And he was commissioned to essentially write a hit piece on Hillary Clinton, on the Clintons in the late 90s. And he came out of that being a staunch ally of them. He did a total ideological switch, ended up founding an organization called Media Matters for America, a supposed watchdog, a conservative media watchdog, information fact checker. And since then, he's got a total of 14 entities that he's running out of his office space, a variety of supposed nonprofits, foundations, and super PACs that were working directly with the Clinton campaign during this previous election season. And yeah, he probably did burn through $30 or $40 million. And just a couple of weeks ago, he was asking for another $40 million from his network of donors, for round two, now that Trump is in power.
Well, evidently his manifesto leaked. I've seen a copy of it. Dr. Corsi's seen a copy of it. I know you have seen a copy of it. It's quite grandiose. He takes enormous credit for things that, in fact, he had nothing to do with. It's amazing to me that based on my calculation, Bill and Hillary Clinton probably spent upwards of $2 billion in their efforts to seize the White House. The cost of the mainstream media coverage of the campaign, which was really one long Hillary Clinton commercial, that in itself is millions of dollars. Now you figure in the manipulations of Facebook, the manipulations of Google. It's really a miracle that Donald Trump won, given all that he faced. I am under the impression that based on a very comprehensive and well-drafted complaint at the Federal Election Commission, that Mr. Brock has broken multiple laws, that he has been shuffling money between nonprofit entities, hard money entities, and so on. I know this. If I did this, or if you did, Andrew, we'd already be in jail.
Exactly, and that's the problem, is that we have Media Matters for America is a charity. It's supposed to be a charitable organization, and here's a snip from their fundraising document from a couple weeks ago. Media Matters has already secured access to raw data from Facebook, Twitter, and social media sites. We will now develop technologies and processes to systematically monitor and analyze this unfiltered data. So they have a line into social media sites in order to review the data, analyze it, data mine it. And here's what they plan to do with it. This is their top outcomes. Over the next 4 years, Media Matters will focus on exposing serial misinformers and right-wing propagandists inhabiting everything from social media to the highest levels of government. Internet and social media platforms will no longer uncritically and without consequence host and enrich fake news sites and propagandists. So what they're saying is, it's one thing to go after Roger Stone, which they have, and we'll get to that in a second. But it's not, what they're saying is that they're going to go after individuals on social media if they determine those people to be serial misinformers. And we have to ask ourselves, is that what a charitable organization should be doing? We have people that are donating money and they're deducting that from their tax returns. And they also talk about, they brag about how they targeted you, Roger, saying that we put pressure on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, and due to our pressure, they stopped booking Roger Stone on their shows. So these shows wanted to have you on, and then Media Matters came in and said, no, his views are unacceptable. Don't book him anymore, or we're going to put pressure on you. We're going to put pressure on advertisers to stop booking with you, in an effort to silence you instead of allowing you to debate and let the merits of your ideas and thoughts judge what you're saying. They want to silence people that are saying things against the status quo that they want out there. And you were speaking to Alex Jones before about Twitter. How if you look at Donald Trump's Twitter, and 100% of the replies is all negative, even though all of his tweets get 50, 60, 70,000 likes. But Media Matters has raw access to Twitter's data, and it shouldn't be a stretch of the imagination that they're pressuring Twitter to filter the view on the site to show only negative comments to Trump, creating this false illusion that 100% of Americans are against Trump. So perspectives of pro-Trump supporters are just not being seen by the greater media or by the population. And then we get into the situation where there's millions of Americans that believe that everybody that voted for Trump is a Nazi, racist, xenophobe, which is just not true.
Well, I think they've actually made a mistake because, you see, the president follows his Twitter feed religiously. And he's a highly intelligent, in fact, brilliant man who will quickly realize that the responses are being manipulated. So I think this will open a window to a broader understanding of what Brock and the extreme left are up to. As far as their successful efforts to censor me in some kind of Stalinistic-like censorship, in all honesty, I would never have met and affiliated with InfoWars and Alex Jones if I was regularly appearing on Fox. So they have done me an enormous favor. And based on my studying of the data, Andrew, you and I are reaching far more people right now than CNN or Fox in this same time frame. So in essence, these attacks on us have only made us stronger. I understood that Mr. Brock was trying to seek some formal role in deciding what is fake news. And that's laughable because virtually everything he and his twisted little sycophants at Media Matters crank out is the fake news. They are the purveyors of fake news. They may be the inventors of fake news. What say you?
Yeah, I hear you. It's backfired dramatically. I honestly think that if it wasn't for David Brock's just conglomerate of organizations aggressively targeting conservative viewpoints on the internet, then Hillary Clinton may have won. I think that it totally backfired, and it's kind of hysterical to see him trying to do the same exact thing without, obviously he hasn't learned his lesson. But on the other end, though, a large majority of Americans, a significant percentage of Americans get their news from Facebook and Twitter. So, whether or not people would like the news that is being produced by alternative media sources such as InfoWars, what Media Matters is trying to do is to just make those posts, those links to any alternative news sites, just not show up at all. So even if somebody wants to see that news, see that insight, how can you find something if you don't even know what you're looking for? So they just want to, contain the echo chamber and keep their echo chamber in place instead of allowing communication to happen between the two opposing political ideals in this country.
What's particularly interesting to me is, given David Brock's long record of ineffectiveness and the fact that he spent a huge amount of money and achieved virtually nothing, particularly given the enormous built-in institutional advantages of his candidate, I can't imagine why any rich liberal would give him 10 cents. In fact, if I were George Soros, I'd be demanding a refund. This guy's an incompetent. He lets his boyfriend run the organization, by and large. He has been caught cheating on his taxes. Look, I owe the IRS some money, but I have a payment plan, and I pay them every month, and it hurts, I assure you. But Mr. Brock is not in that situation, as has been widely reported. So, look, I think that he's breaking multiple laws. I think it's perfectly understandable why the Obama Justice Department hasn't looked at him. But if we're really going to have equal protection under the law, then frankly, I think he should be brought to justice, not for his political ideas, but for the fact that he's cheating and that he's violating federal election laws in this incredible effort to smear and call people names. In all honesty, I'm tired of being called a racist. I was out working against the racist Rockefeller drug laws in New York State before David Brock was in long pants. I was helping Richard Nixon desegregate the public schools without violence before David Brock was a gleam in his father's eye. So this name calling, bigot, racist, and so on, it is what the left does when they can't refute your ideas with facts. It is really beneath our national political dialogue. That's my view. Where do you think Mr. Brock goes from here, Andrew? Because I know you are wisely keeping a very close eye on him.
Well, about 6 months ago, I started looking into his organizations because all of a sudden, there's all this astroturfing online. It looked like paid comments, pro Hillary Clinton comments online. And it turns out that David Brock's, one of his super PACs, Correct the Record, was essentially correcting Hillary Clinton's record online. And they were out in the open saying that, hey, we're a super PAC, but since we don't make any paid advertisements on TV or on the radio, we just stick with online communications, we can directly coordinate with the Clinton campaign. So we can wait for orders from the top and then distribute the message on internet forums across the internet, creating this false illusion that a lot of people like Hillary Clinton when that just wasn't the case. So that goes to backfiring against what his intentions were. But the problem here and what I'm looking into, my investigation is trying to unravel the complex relationship between his up to 14 separate entities that are all sharing office space with Media Matters in downtown Washington, D.C. And it's extremely complex. And we talk about submitting an official complaint. Well, the problem is on the right, there isn't really much infrastructure for groups that focus on litigation against liberal groups that may be breaking the law. There's no real, there's not a network of organizations that focus on that type of thing. The Federal Election Commission is completely incompetent. They have no idea how to enforce the current laws, period. They regularly deadlock. Whenever an organization will ask the Federal Election Commission, hey, is it okay if we can do this? And they'll spend a year working on the decision and they'll come back saying, it's a 3-3 split. We don't know. So we're just not going to issue a ruling on it. So they don't know how to enforce the law. The IRS is clearly compromised. They put way too much focus on conservative groups, watchdog and conservative groups, but they don't even look at liberal groups. So it's just a system of incompetence to where nobody knows how to enforce the law, period. And so what David Brock is doing, in my view, is getting away with as much as possible out in the open. And he's protected by none other than just the complex relationship between multiple nonprofits, foundations, and super PACs all working together under one, it's really just one single entity, but they claim to be 14 separate related organizations. And my most recent research is focused on analyzing, cost sharing agreements between the separate organizations and issues that are surrounding that. And it's a very big story, but it's just so hard to talk about because it's just so complicated. And so that's what I've been looking into. I think that if the work on my site, the Citizens Audit, gets out, and we have, and we start a conversation around the operations of Media Matters and their relationship with political entities, it would be a very big issue for David Brock, because there's a significant amount of just concerning things that they're doing with their money that at the very least should trigger the IRS to come in, take a look at their books and determine, hey, should Media Matters be a charitable organization? We should, I believe that they have lost any reason to be designated as a charitable organization. That should be revoked, and they should be liable for back taxes for all the time that they've been claiming to be a charitable organization, but in reality, just operating like a political organization.
Yeah, they've clearly violated their current tax status, and they should be held liable. You may remember back when I published my book, The Clinton's War on Women, which was the definitive oppo dump on Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton and their various illegal activities. There was a major effort to invade the Amazon.com page to lay a disproportionate number of one-star and no-star reviews of my book. Most of them we were able to track back to Brock and his minions. Now on Amazon, there's evidence that this is beginning again, pertaining to my new book, The Making of the President 2016, How Donald Trump Orchestrated an American Revolution. So this is as good a time as any to ask folks who are tuned in today, who like the book, please go to Amazon and leave an objective review for others to see. This is more important than you might think, because the wholesale book retailers and others monitor Amazon very closely to see what the reviews look like before they decide to order. And that the very fine products at the InfoWar store are really what fund this effort to bring you the real news and to bring you the first-rate investigative journalism of people like Paul Joseph Watson, Dr. Jerome Corsi, and so many others. My wife, who is very intent on not only oral health, but having a gleaming smile, is an enormous fan of the Super Blue Fluoride toothpaste that you can now get again at the Infowars.com store. Now, this has been sold out for months, but now it's available again. And research across the board indicates that this does more than just cosmetic value. This has a health value, because healthy gums contribute to overall health and help prevent both heart disease and heart attacks. When bacteria infects your gums, it can actually enter the bloodstream and therefore contribute to blood clots or heart attacks. I must tell you, Mrs. Stone is very, very particular about the oral products that she uses, and she swears by Super Blue Fluoride toothpaste. So here's a chance for a win-win situation. You can get a product on the InfoWars store, in this case, Super Blue Fluoride-free toothpaste, and you can help the revolution. There are literally hundreds of testimonials from people about the efficacy of this product. So please, grab it now. I'm going to buy some of the new caveman formula, although I'm afraid they might start calling me that if I do. In any event, please go to the site, you can buy this terrific product. And frankly, it's also the best place to get your copy of The Making of the President 2016, How Donald Trump Orchestrated an American Revolution. Now, as is widely known, I have pledged to sign the book of everyone who buys the book here at InfoWars. And yes, that pledge is still good. And yes, my wrist hurts. And yes, I am signing thousands of book plates a day. And your commitment, your fulfillment will come. I beg your indulgence. I beg your patience. I had no idea that the book would sell this widely on InfoWars. But I want everyone who is an InfoWars watcher or listener to get this special edition signed by me. I understand Alex Jones is going to sign many of these books as well. I want this to be a special thanks to those who loyally follow InfoWars. Why? Because you are the backbone of the Trump revolution, because you are on the cutting edge of stopping the globalists. You deserve the accolades of your fellow patriots. And if you will buy this book at InfoWars, even though it's available elsewhere, I pledge to you, even though it may take some time, you will get your personally autographed a copy of the book, something I hope that you will share with your friends and family. There is no place like InfoWars when it comes to the real news. We're in a struggle, folks, a struggle for the future of Western civilization, a struggle for our freedoms. You have seen in the last 48 hours the extent to which the two-party duopoly and the insiders who have driven this country into the gutter are prepared to smear and violate the law. So I say, God bless Alex Jones, God bless our president, Donald J. Trump, and God bless you for following InfoWars and being the tip of the spear when it comes to the resistance.
She wants to help me.
No, you've got to be sent for reprogramming. Hillary.
Not reprogramming. Not reprogramming. No.
All right.
No, Hillary. Hillary, save me, Mommy. Russian scum.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones.